good afternoon to you, and many thanks for joining us on KTN News Desk on this 13th day of July 2016. Always a pleasure to have you tuned in. A lot has been happening in the country and beyond. We have it all lined up for you in this broadcast. But first, let's take a look at the highlights. grilling there of High Court suspended High Court Judge Joseph Mutava ongoing at the anniversary towers. But let's now just take a look at what went down in the morning.
You've stated that you were the only judge.
Yes, I've indicated that afternoon, I think I was the only judge because matters kept on coming until I left my chambers, not my chamber, I was in open court until 6 p.m. and I could not even deal with everything. Files just kept on being brought one by one. And I wish there was a way of getting those files because during vacation, there are usually no course lists to show which matters are coming in, especially in the first instance. So it has been very difficult for me to bring to this tribunal the list of the matters I dealt with. I don't even remember the lawyers, but there were very many matters. I said before the Judicial Service Commission that I dealt with over 40 matters. And I think that is in page 131. If I may read, I say, I do not know why I forget, but I was the only judge on that Friday, and I dealt with about 40 matters. I was going home at 6:30 p.m. In fact, I reached a point where I told the advocates, now I'm not able to work anymore. And this is the context in which this matter came through.
Okay, thank you. So, according to the duty roster, who was the judge, the vacation judge in the Judicial Review Division?
If you look at the NB at the bottom, the criminal duty judge was supposed to deal with matters in judicial review.
And who was that?
This was Justice Moshemi.
And you confirmed that she did not sit on 10th August 2012, which was a Friday.
I would not know whether she sat. What I know is that this matter was brought in the context of the fact that I was the only one sitting that afternoon. That's what I was told or made to understand, because I got files from every division, not just judicial review, even criminal, even civil.
But Judge, your evidence is very categoric before the Judicial Service Commission. You say that you were the only judge sitting in that division.
Yes, that is what I was made to understand, because I got over 40 files. That was unusual in one day.
Who made you understand that?
My clerk, because files were just being brought as we were continuing with matters, and they piled up that afternoon. And I was to deal with, all of them were supposed to be urgent. It was a Friday.
But did you not try and call the judges in the other divisions to find out whether they were there or not?
I think during vacation, a lot of things happen. Mm-hmm. So I did not call, because I did not expect these files. They just kept on trickling in as I was sitting.
But I would think, Judge, the obvious thing to do was to find out where the other judges were and why you were the one who was being labored with all these files.
It was not the obvious thing. It was normal that when you're sitting as a vacation judge, you'd get files. Advocates come and say, this is very urgent, can't wait for Monday. And this work is done by back office staff, not judges. You cannot put out push away files just because you're told this comes from this division, when you're being told you are the only available judge at the time.
All right, that is the grilling of suspended High Court Judge there at the anniversary towers, Joseph Mutava, who took the stand to defend himself against allegations of gross misconduct. And still on matters to do with the corridors of justice, yesterday the Judicial Service Commission came up with a list of those shortlisted for the position of Chief Justice. Today, currently, as we speak, the Judicial Service Commission is reviewing 15 applications of those interested in the position of Deputy Chief Justice. Let's just take a look at the names of those who are interested in this position and see what they have been doing, even as we expect the final list of those who will be shortlisted by close of business today. First and foremost, we have Lady Justice Wanjiru Karanja. I should mention that most of those who've applied for the position of DCJ, 14 of them are women. One of them them is a man, and most of them are appellate judges or Court of Appeal judges. Lady Justice Wanjiru Karanja, we have Lady Justice Philomena Mwilu, Lady Justice Lydia Achodeo from the Court of Appeal, Lady Justice Fatuma Sichale, Lady Justice Pauline Nyamwea also from the Court of Appeal, also interested in the position or to succeed Justice Kalpana Rawal. We have Miss Surinda Kapila, who has more than 25 years experience as a lawyer. We have Miss Pamela Mwikali Tutui, who at some point was the vice chairperson of the defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya, also interested in that position. Miss Joyce Miguda Majiwa, Honorable Judith Wanjala, and the only man who applied for this job, and that is Mr. David Mwaure Waihiga. Among the other names, we also have Lady Justice Hannah Okwengu from the Court of Appeal, Lady Justice Martha Kome, also from the Court of Appeal, Lady Justice Agnes Murgor, the spouse to Justice Philip Murgor as well, Lady Justice Roslyn Nambuye, who also applied for the position of Chief Justice and is among the 6 who were shortlisted, also a judge of the Court of Appeal. And finally, we have Lady Justice Abida Ali Aroni. Those are the 15 names of those interested in the position of Deputy Chief Justice. The Judicial Service Commission currently is reviewing their application to come up with a final list of those shortlisted, and this is something we will definitely be keeping you up to date on. Now let's go to the world's newest country. A ceasefire appears to be holding in South Sudan's capital Juba after 4 days of heavy fighting between rival forces left more than 270 people dead. The city is quiet with no reports of helicopter gunships in the sky or tanks on the streets, but shops remained shut. President Salva Kiir and his rival, Vice President Riek Machar, announced a ceasefire which came into force on Monday night, where clashes between troops loyal to the two men had threatened a recent peace deal, with 272 people dead, according to the United Nations, and about 42,000 people have fled their homes during the fighting, with 7,000 of them taking refuge at the United Nations compound.
In the facility there, we run out of the things of dressing. Even some of the wounds are not yet dressed, and also some of the drugs. We need, and also some of the most critical things, the bullet. Most of the patients, 90% of them, the bullet are inside. There is no outlet. So on the head also, most of the things, they are inside, and 90% of the patients, even the one which are inside now. So they need operation, and if the operation is not done, then they should pass away.
As we just received an operational update from UNMISS, the mission reports that the ceasefire seems to be largely holding, barring sporadic gunfire. It also reports that the airport in the capital has been reopened, although commercial flights remain suspended. Peacekeepers were able to conduct a limited number of short patrols in Juba today. Since the fighting began on Friday, some 5,000 additional displaced people have sought protection in the UN's Tomping compound in the capital. Another 3,000 IDPs who arrived in the UN house premises have been relocated to the protection of civilian sites nearby.
And still on the same, reports reaching us a short while ago indicate that there are a number of Kenyans who are expected any time from now to land at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport from Juba International Airport. And I understand it's not the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, but the Wilson Airport. Let's now link up with our reporter who is at the Wilson Airport, Timothy Otieno, for an update on the same. Timothy, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on the news desk. What time exactly do we expect these Kenyans to land?
Well, Akisa, the plane has just landed about 3 minutes ago here at the Wilson Airport. Now, it's important to note that this is a plane that was a private charter plane, and just from walking out of an interview with one of the Kenyans who arrived at the flight, and the assessment being given by this specific Kenyan is that most of the planes that are evacuating Kenyans from Juba are actually from private organizations. These are people who had companies who were based in Juba, South Sudan, but it was important to note that they say that there was no government intervention per se for rescuing the people. The person who was speaking to Isaac Mayer, just walking away right now, was telling us that the fighting began on Thursday, and since then they were not able to communicate with any official from the Kenyan embassy in Juba, but initially there had been messages that were going around giving specific numbers that were linked to the Kenyan embassy. So most of the Kenyans who were calling those numbers those numbers were not being responded to, and there was a time that most of the lines. So there's really been a communication blackout in the area of Juba so far. But those who have arrived here this morning at the Wilson Airport, of course, insisting that they arrived through private means. Isaac Mayer, the person whom we spoke to, was not comfortable revealing the organization he worked with, but he's just mentioning that he's just among the few who were able to come back to the country once the airspace had been opened up, but that there are more Kenyans still trapped in Juba, even as there is an uneasy ceasefire going on in the capital of South Sudan, Akisa.
Now, Timothy, I don't know whether you've been able to speak to some of those Kenyans who've landed from Juba, but that was quite a very tricky situation they were in. How do they feel? What is their reaction about this nation that the world expected to finally begin cultivating peace?
Well, most of them are really pessimistic, if I could say, as it is right now. A lot of confusion. The mood we were getting from one of the persons we interviewed here was a lot of confusion because there's a lot of issues. You don't know how many Kenyans are still trapped. You don't know whether they are safe or not. Secondly, because the picture that were being painted was that on Thursday, the day before the conflict broke out, there was a lot of tension within Juba, and most of the firing that began, Isaac Mayer, who we were interviewing, telling us that they had to hide underneath the desks at their office for several hours. There's no lights, identifying that there was no lights, particularly where they were. Most of the people who were there, their phones had to go off. They lost communication. And the issue is there's a lot of confusion per se, if I could, for lack of a better term, a lot of confusion and a lot of doubt, and there's some air of they don't know what's next. And like I had mentioned, they were mentioning to us, the people we spoke to, they are among the lucky who have been able to come back. They still believe that most people are still trapped within Juba. Although there is an uneasy calm that has surrounded the capital so far, there's really pessimistic because no government information is forthcoming. They were identifying to us that most of them who went to the Kenyan embassy this morning in Juba were returned back. Most have lost their passports and identification, and therefore the process of documenting them so that they can be able to board a flight coming into the country still remains sketchy and unknown as it stands, Akisa.
Thank you very much, Timothy, for that. Timothy Otieno there joining us from the Wilson Airport, where a number of Kenyans have just landed from the Juba, where there's a conflict that has been in existence since Friday. We'll definitely be bringing you more info on that. But at this point, let's take a short break. Do not go too far. Coming back, we'll be taking a look at sports news and how Happy Birthday KTN News first anniversary went down. Do stick with us.